Hi, this is Margaret Byrd, and welcome to Color Quest, and welcome to my studio, otherwise known as my kitchen. We have had 6 incredible weeks looking at how cochineal, an ancient dye source from a scale insect, can create a wide palette of colors. And today, I'd like to look at the result of all of those next to one another, but also show you so many more examples of samples that I have dyed with cochineal over the years. The spectacular palette diversity with cochineal is one of the finest out there. So come join me as we take a look at the rainbow of colors that is possible with this incredible dye source. So over the last 6 weeks here at Color Quest, we have been working with cochineal, and we've taken it from a neutral, simple dye in the pot, brings about a beautiful pinkish hue, and then we've played with the pH and we moved it both to the acidic side, got some warmer tones, and to the alkaline side and got some cool tones. We also worked with iron. We got such a variety of color, and depending upon the fiber that we were dyeing, we also got incredibly different results. I'd like to look at all of those together now. Look at that, incredible. They look so beautiful together. Here is cochineal just on its own, that beautiful deep pink hue. We took it over to the red and orange realm using acidic shifts with cream of tartar, citric acid, and then we even did it with an overweld, and got this beautiful light orange. Then on the cool spectrum, we looked at an alkaline shift, and we did so with washing soda, and this was the expected result, to be honest with you. This was a different result, and that was when I was trying to shift it in the pot, whereas this is a cochineal dyed piece of fiber that was put in an afterbath of alkaline solution. Then we played around with some iron and we did the same thing. We took cochineal dyed fiber and put it into an afterbath of iron versus shifting the cochineal dye right in the pot, and look at the differences of those 2 different colors that we got. Incredible, right? So there are so many different ways, and you can see how different the fibers reacted to the dye as well. Wool always being a star, as with silk. Those protein fibers love their natural color. But we did get some darker shades on some of our cotton swatches, but often they were quite light. But that just gives you more options in your palette and a wider spectrum of color. Now, this is an example of just what we worked on together over the last 6 weeks. And what I want to show you next is actually samples of fiber that I have been collecting over the years as I've worked with cochineal in different environments. As you know, I spent time both in Oaxaca, Mexico, and in the Sacred Valley of Peru, and I was lucky enough to work with cochineal in both places. We did slightly different things, and that's one of the beautiful things about working with natural color and understanding that there are so many different ways to work with it. And I got to see that firsthand. In both Mexico and Peru, we worked with wool as our main fiber source. Wool just takes up color so well. It's really forgiving and just sumptuous, gorgeous colors result. I also brought fibers on my own to both of these locations, brought some silk, and I brought some cotton. And I'd like to show you those cotton pieces next to the cotton pieces that we dyed here at Color Quest, because somebody asked, hey, what if I used soy milk as a binder? Would that perhaps deepen the cochineal color on cellulose fiber like cotton? So I thought it would be cool to pull those pieces out and see, because at the time, back in 2020, I was really only using soy milk as a binder or mordant option in my own studio. The wool, we used the traditional metal salt mordants of alum, but on my own, I was still using soy milk. And so it's kind of fun to be able to see what the soy milk did and if it was any different than the results I was getting in these past few weeks where I used aluminum acetate as the mordant on my cotton. So let's head to Oaxaca first. So first, let me just run you through the color palette here. It is pretty spectacular. Look at the way in which the wool picked up the cochineal and all the different ways in which we were able to shift the color. Beautiful, right? These samples are 3 years old too, by the way. So now they're not out and about in the sun, but pretty amazing, right? Wow, loving it. So when I started 6 weeks ago working with Cochineal, I really wanted to find the recipe board that we built when I was working in Oaxaca with the dye master. We set up a series of all of the different things we were going to dye and the steps in which we took in a very organized way. Of course, I then proceeded to rip that piece of paper off the board, take it home, and it got lost in the mess of my garage. Kind of known where it is, but it's hard to get to. But yesterday I pulled it out because I really wanted to look at it. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the details, but there are a few things I want to point out. One is that if you want to know and remember what you've done, keep a record. I am the worst at that, but I'm so grateful that I have this. And you'll see, or maybe you'll remember, that I also did the same thing for myself when I was in Peru. So at least I have this working information that I could piece together to at least have some options in different ways to work with Cochineal. So let me show you that sheet and all the variations that we were able to make based upon a little calculation, a little pH shifts, and some overdying. Look at that, the date back in 2020, last weeks before the world shut down. I was so lucky I got to be there. And we measured our wool at 10 grams. And he put together this incredible list for me. So it had the mordant, the color, which had different names. The N is for neutral, O orange, red 1 and 2 different shades of red, and 2 violets. Plus, well, you can see the other different dye sources we worked with. However, we did all of the wool in an alum 25% weight of fiber plus 5% cream of tartar for all of our dyeing. So that was our base mordant. Then we had a percentage of color. That meant the weight, as we call it. So this was 15% of cochineal to the weight of fiber. And we were working with 10 grams per skein. However, we were dyeing multiple skeins in one pot. So this is all very complex. I won't go too much further into it. We also had a list of what he called the reagents, or this instance, I would say the things that caused colors to shift. And you can see that we worked with things like lemon juice, citric acid, that's what this is, cream of tartar, tin, which I don't use at home, but he gave me some other options for tin. You can use overdying of yellow fiber in order to get the same sort of general color. Vinegar as an acid, we didn't try that in our testing in our cochineal videos here, but that's an option, as we mentioned, using a higher percentage of alum, iron, and cream of tartar. That's a cool combination. And then these were the other shifts that we did using the other dye matter. In any event, this has been a very helpful thing for me to have or to pull out so that I can identify things on the wool. Let me show you that. By the way, here are all the other wools that I dyed while I was in Oaxaca with all those other dye sources, just so you see. Now, I was given these tags that I was supposed to attach to the different skeins. Well, guess what? I never did that. So I'm working from memory here and just a little bit of knowledge about what colors look like. But this is a really great idea if you're organized. The other way in which we identified things was knot system. And I have seen this. Miriam Rice had a whole knot system developed for mordants in the mushroom realm, and read about those, saw a little bit of that at the fungi symposium last year. But these were based upon identifying what the color was the base, and then using this as an over dye. So we were getting different colors. So let me show you an example of this. So this string had 5 knots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which correlated to this number 5, which was from red 1. So here is red 1. So this was cochineal that had been shifted with citric acid, cream of tartar, and tin. So we got this beautiful, really vibrant red. Then we shifted, and so these pieces have this marking on them so that I was to know that these started as R1 or red 1. This as well. Then I can look and see how we shifted them. We did a Paracon over dye. We did a Muicle. We were going to do an indigo, but we didn't. So these are the results. One of Paracon, which is a yellow dye. I'm going to guess that is the Paracon over dye to this. And then one of Muicle, which is that really light but beautiful violet color that comes from a plant there. And it just slightly darkened it. So you can see we got 3 different shades. We did the same for all of the cochineal. So these markings told me how many knots, what we were starting with. So if it had 6 knots, that meant we were starting with a neutral. If it had 10 knots, we were starting with the orange base. Anyway, not to confuse you, but it was a good system and helpful in order to remember what you were doing. Now I love this one. So this is the orange that we made by using a lot of lemon juice. And then we overdyed with Muicle. Let me show you how that's spelled, Muicle. And look at the color that we got overdying it. How do I know? Because I have the 10 knots on this, which means this fiber started out like this. And look at that beautiful purple. It's such a warm purple. And so that is a 3 shifted. You're taking cochineal, you're turning it to orange, and then you're overdying it with another dye. Yet another combination of things you can do. Same here. This is the neutral cochineal. And then we overdyed it with Paracon. I'm gonna guess it's that one. Paracon is that yellow. We also overdyed it with Muicle. And look at this. We overdyed it with indigo. That one has like a variegated result. Looks so pretty. Don't know why that happened, but dang, it's pretty. So look at that as well. Overdying it with a dark indigo from a vat. And look at this one, taking this purpley color and moving it over by doing an over dye with things like Paracon, so you can warm up your cooler colors by over-dyeing it with yellow, for example, of Paracon. Hopefully that wasn't too much information, but was helpful in showing you how complex you can get and also how easy it is to mix things up and forget. So if you have the patience, write stuff down. You'll be happy that you do. And like me now, going back 3 years, it's really amazing to be able to kind of piece it all back together. So the cotton that I dyed while I was in Oaxaca, I pulled out just a few samples. I don't have many left. I've used a lot of them in my artwork. But let me show you a couple of them compared to what we just did. And these were all pre-treated with a soy milk binder. So there you have a few different pieces of cotton. I don't know exactly which dye pots these went into, but you can kind of get a sense that this definitely has a very similar color tone to our neutral and not that different. So soy milk binder with the cotton as well as a darker one. And I'm guessing this probably came out of something that was shifted into the alkaline range. Here's a lighter version of all of those, and you can see that cotton is pretty light. So if I were to look against other things that I've done, it's similar to what we did with the iron. I have no idea if this came from iron. I don't think so, but it could have. And really pretty much the same sort of light shade for the cotton. And although we got a slightly darker shade here with a different piece of cotton, you can see that it really isn't that much darker. So do with that what you will, but know that you can be using soy milk as a binder and you'll probably get different results. So the last thing I want to show you is the wool that we dyed in Peru. Now we made, I think, 34, 36 different dyes while I was there. You saw some of that video footage, or you could go back and look at that, where I talk a lot about what we did. We did a lot of shifting of colors and mixing of colors in the dye pot. We also made tons of different shades, starting with an exhaust or leaving the fiber in longer to create different shades. So that's another amazing thing you can do. Remember, exhaust baths, exhaust dye, they create their own color. Eventually it'll be almost no color, but you can get different shades just by using the exhaust or by leaving your fiber in for longer periods of time. We also mixed colors right in the pot, and we did a lot of in the pot mordant treatments. We would throw in local minerals like colpa. We used alum rock, and we also played around with citric acid, or what she called lemon salts. And we did all of that sort of mixing and brewing right in the pot, and it was fantastic. It was beautiful every time she pulled out a new piece to show me, and she would say, "Look, diferente." And she was showing me how subtle differences can be made with just slight changes in how you are working with the dyes and the fibers. The one thing I want to show you that was an after bath was the results that we got using, wait for it, urine. In the Quechuan culture, they collect children's urine, they save it, and they use that in their dye practice. It is used as a very strong alkaline shift, and it is used as an after bath. I want to show you the colors that we got by using different exhausts of cochineal and putting them into the urine. Remarkable. Check this out. So every single one of these colors came from some form of cochineal, many of which was a combination, a series of exhausts. This was definitely an exhaust. This was used with fleur colis, which is a yellow, and cochineal. I believe it was an over dye of cochineal over fleur colis. Might have even been in the pot. I don't remember. This is why I have notes. And then all the different shades This lineup here is the alkaline shift that was used with urine. Look at that dark purple. I mean, it is so dark, and the alkaline of urine is like ammonia, basically, and so it is very high on the pH spectrum in the alkaline. And then we got these different shades by putting in fibers that were coming from exhaust versions of the Cochineal dye. There may have been some other things mixed in. I know there were, because the list that I made while we were making these things, scribbling in my studio, I made a lot of notes about what each one of these included. This series over here had a lot of mixing with other dye sources and then adding all different kinds of variations with modifiers in the pot. Pretty. Anyway, that is one spectacular palette right there. All thanks to Maria in Peru. So there you have it, Cochineal. If you haven't worked with Cochineal, get some. It is such a magical dye source, and the wide range of colors, all the experimentation you can do. It's a really strong source of dye, so you don't need very much, and it's just so much fun to play with. The experiments, the exploration is endless, so try it out. You can source Cochineal from places like Botanical Colors. There are other locations. I have some that I brought back from Mexico. I also received some from an area in the Canary Islands off the coast of Africa, where they are currently harvesting, I believe, the largest portion of Cochineal in the world. And it's being done ethically. I know some people feel sad about using bugs in this way, but know that what I saw from the farm in Oaxaca, they are carefully managed and they are harvesting in the best way possible. So there you have it. Thank you, Cochineal. I am grateful for all the beauty that you have brought us. Next week on Color Quest, it is time to review 3 months we've been working together creating this rainbow palette, or what I like to call the rainbow journey, and we're done for now. So next week, join me here as we look at the rainbow that we created. When you put it all together, it's hard to imagine working with anything other than natural color. Have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you next Friday on Color Quest. On the and a variety and different, what am I trying to say?